Hello. Well, that is 8 o'clock. So I can see there's a few of you watching. So hello. If you are able to, just drop something in the chat to let me know who's around. Otherwise, you'll need to WhatsApp me. I've not yet had any questions so today is, for those of you that are watching at some point in the future, today is the 27th of February. And so yesterday we were looking at Jesus' encounter with some religious leaders from Luke chapter 11. I've got a few emails. So Sue says hello in the chat, and John says hello by email. I'm hoping that I gave some lessons yesterday, and so on how to use YouTube chat, and so we'll see whether those prove to be beneficial or not. So I haven't had any questions. I'm just going to give a couple more minutes for people to log in if they need to. Oh, Mary Baverstock. Hello, everyone. I am here. Hi, and Caroline. So those lessons obviously worked. Great. Good to see you, Mary. And hopefully you've got some questions lined up. Let me just check WhatsApp as see if any questions have come in. No, so no questions, and the email. No, right. Okay, so I thought what I might do, if there were no questions, we spent a little bit of time yesterday touching on the whole topic of the fear of the Lord. And I thought, Steve and Anne, hello, you're also there. Just touch on just a few thoughts on that, and maybe more to kind of to give you some pointers in how you could go away and explore this a bit more if it was something that you were interested in doing. I certainly think that doing a study on the fear of the Lord would be something that's worthwhile. If you were going to do a word study in the old days, you'd need to have a book called the Concordance, and I used to have one. I've still got it in my office. It's about this thick, and that's quite a big thing. And a concordance is a book that lists in English every single, and mine was in the NIV, so every English word that occurs in the NIV, and and then next to each word, it's got listed out every reference of every verse where that verse occurs or that word occurs in the Bible. And so if you were interested in doing a study on the fear of the Lord, you would look up fear, and then it would list out every single verse where the word fear occurs, and you would then go and look those up and see which of them refer to the fear of the Lord. Obviously, today we've got computers, which makes things a lot easier. My go-to online resource is the Step Bible. It's free, it's on the internet, and it's the creation of his name's just gone out of my head, from Hardwick. He's been to preach at our church quite a few times. David Instone Brewer. He's the one. I'm just trying to just look it up to make sure I don't give you the wrong. So Step Bible, I think it's just stepbible.org. Yes, stepbible.org. So stepbible.org. You can either, so it's online, you can either access it on a computer. I most often access it on my phone. And then you could put in a search for, and if you use speech marks around the phrase fear of the Lord, so speech marks, fear of the Lord, speech marks, it will actually go away and just pull back every reference. So it won't just do every reference of fear, it will just pull out the ones where you've got the phrase fear of the Lord. And then you can look through. That only occurs in the Old Testament. And so But again, very interesting thing to go and look up, because so those references we looked at yesterday from Proverbs 3 and Proverbs 9, and multiple other references which talk about how the fear of the Lord is a good thing. It leads to wisdom. It keeps us on the right track. But as a phrase, it doesn't occur in the New Testament, but there are plenty of other references. So you might say, well, in that case, we're not supposed to fear the Lord. That's an Old Testament thing, not a New Testament thing. But there are examples from the New Testament where that simply doesn't hold. That argument doesn't. You can't back it up. I noted down various references. So, for example, just a few random ones for you. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 12 says, so this is after that kind of that famous passage about that Jesus being found in very nature, who being in very nature God did not consider equality with God. So that phrase, that chunk, the verse after that, verse 12 of Philippians 2 says, therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. Another verse that's quite interesting, just kind of to throw into the mix, is Matthew chapter 10 and verse 28, and there's a similar verse in Luke chapter 12. So the context of this is Jesus has just sent his disciples, or is in the process of sending his disciples out and warning them that they will face opposition. Yes, they'll be able to do some amazing things, but there will be opposition as well. And so he's talking about facing opposition from other people. And he says in verse 28, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. And so there's a similar reference in Luke chapter 12. I'm just seeing if we've got 1 Peter 2:17. Let's just have a look at that. Peter, somewhere near the end of the Bible. Hebrews, James, Peter. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 17. Show proper respect to everyone, love the family of believers, fear God, honor the emperor. So obviously fearing God is something that continues over into the New Testament as being something that we should do. So what does it mean, and how do we square it with those verses we looked at yesterday from 1 John chapter 4, where it talks about love and fear being incompatible? Well, I think if you were to look through a number of other references in the New Testament, we discover people who don't do things because of the fear of somebody. So in Matthew, for example, chapter 14, verse 5, Herod wants to do something to John the Baptist, but because of his fear for the people, he doesn't do it. And so his fear of a certain group of people affect the way that he acts. And I think when it comes to talking about the fear of the Lord, I think there's a sense in which we're all afraid of something, and the thing that we are the most afraid of is what governs our actions and our decisions and our choices. Or the consequences that I am most fearful of. So if I'm in a kind of a situation and I can choose to do this or this, part of the consideration is which consequence am I most fearful of? Do I want to avoid most? And I think it's kind of certainly part of what it means to fear the Lord is to do with that. It's this idea that when it comes to my decision making, my desire to please God needs to trump everything else. So however fearful I might be of X, Y, and Z, or consequence X, Y, and Z, my desire to do what God wants is greater than my fear of this happening or that happening or that happening. Carol, if your question in WhatsApp is suggesting that you've written something in the YouTube chat, then the answer is no. I can't see what you've written. I don't know if that's what that message was about, but if it was, and in because in 1 John chapter 4, it talks, which is what we looked at yesterday, we read yesterday, verse 18. It goes on to say, fear. So there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. And so I think it's like a lot of these things. It's you take one verse and it maybe leads you in one direction, but then you need another verse that maybe leads you somewhere else. And so it's important to take the whole thing together and not just kind of try to be steered by one particular verse, because obviously part of the drive to do the right thing is a fear of the consequences of doing the wrong thing. I mean, certainly that was true throughout. The prophets were constantly warning God's people of what would happen if they disobeyed God. God laid down blessings and curses, and Jesus does the same thing in the Gospels. He warns people of the consequences. There's that story in Acts 5 of Ananias and Sapphira, and it says that the whole of the church was gripped with fear when they saw what was happened, when they saw what happened to them. And so that's obviously a part of what's going on. So a fear of the consequences of not doing the right thing. But I think and that's a part of it, but I think the main incentive, which is why we find it a little bit difficult to try and get our heads around this idea of the fear of the Lord, is it's to do with it's not the fear of doing the wrong thing that keeps us from doing the wrong thing. It's a desire to do the right thing that keeps us doing the right thing. That desire to stay close to God. That when we've been close to God, when we've experienced that, when we know His presence, when we know His peace, we want more of that rather than less of that. And so the fear is almost not wanting to do something that pulls me further away, but to carry on doing those things that draw me in. Now, I have no idea whether anything that I have just said makes any sense, because I've just kind of rambled for 10 minutes with a few thoughts. But if this is something that you're interested in, and as I say, as there have been, let me just quickly check, there have been no questions coming in apart from, yeah. So doing a Bible-wide study on either the fear of the Lord or simply the word fear in the New Testament, using something like, for example, stepbible.org, would be a very beneficial thing to do. That's the way that I often do word studies. I use stepbible.org. put in a phrase with speech marks around it to use the whole phrase rather than individual. Because if you were just to type in fear of the Lord in Step Bible and do a search on that, it would return every single verse that contains the word fear, or contains the word of, or contains the word the, or contains the word Lord. So you get thousands of verses. But if you put it in speech marks, fear of the Lord, then it just picks out that one phrase. I say in the New Testament, you just need to do a search on fear and see what comes back. There is, and I think kind of across the whole of the Bible, it comes across as being, this is something that is good. It's something that Christians and followers of Jesus should be doing. It's therefore it can't be incompatible with love. So whatever 1 John 4:18 is going on about, it's not talking about the fear of the Lord. Right. That's 15 minutes, which is about roughly what we want these sessions to be. Someone's just WhatsApped me, but that might be something totally different. Yes, nothing to do with this. So I'm going to call it a day. If you want to know more about how you can use Step Bible, or I also, the other thing I use is it's an Olive Tree Bible app, but I think you have to pay, or you get the app's free, but you have to pay if you want. You get all sorts of different versions of the Bible and commentaries and dictionaries and all sorts, but you have to pay for those. Whereas on stepbible.org, it's freely available, and you could get on there straight after this and start hunting away. It's also got some simple instructions on how to do it, and there's videos on YouTube that help explain it. But if you wanted to know some more about that, then either send me an email or catch me on Sunday at 4:00 for our afternoon service. Right, I'm going to call it a day there. Thank you for those of you that joined.